Today's lesson is kind of almost like a Rorschach test. People who are jiu-jitsu folks are gonna be like, yay, jiu-jitsu, and people who aren't are gonna be like, oh no, what happened because of jiu-jitsu? And none of that is really the big answer here. Hi everyone, welcome to today's research-informed defensive lesson here at Active Self-Protection. Every day of the year, we post a real-life use of force caught on camera so that your training and practice can be more research-informed. I'm your host, John Correa. This one comes to us from Berkeley in California. This is not a paid endorsement, but I am a brand ambassador for Heckler and Koch USA. HK firearms are incredibly reliable, incredibly accurate, great firearms for defensive carry. From the new VP9A1 to the CC9 to the P30 that I have carried every day for the last 8 years, they are incredible firearms for defensive use. You carry a gun just in case. Shouldn't it be an HK just in case? The fight is already in progress when the recording starts, how it often happens with cell phone videos. So we don't have any information on exactly how this started, who's who and what's what, but you'll see it happen as it unfolds. We have sound. It's serious stuff. Let's listen in. The news story that I have linked in the description said that police arrived within 1 minute of receiving a 911 call that a fight involving a knife had happened. They arrested both the guy with the knife and the man that was fighting the other guy who was on the ground. The victim here, or the guy who got stabbed, depends on how you want to look at things, is in stable condition in the hospital. That's the only information I have. Again here, just so that we're clear, I only have about 18 months of jiu-jitsu training, okay? So I'm a white belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm not claiming any expertise in that. I do have a 13-year earned second-degree black belt in a derivative of Kempo known as Umas. So yeah, I've got the empty-handed chops. There's some lessons here that I think we really got to focus on for the average person. Couple of things here as we begin. Number one, let's make sure that we always follow the rules of stupid. Now, are those legal? No, that's not legally required of anyone. But Farnham's Law, as amended, do not go stupid places with stupid people at stupid times and do stupid things for stupid reasons. We've recently added that fifth one. If you break one rule of stupid, you can usually get away with it, but when you break 2 or more rules of stupid, the chances of stupid things happening goes up exponentially. Here you're out at 11:30 at night. That's a stupid time. Most people are inside from 10 till 5. 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. is inside time for most people, and you're in the bar section of Berkeley, California, you're in a stupid place. So friends, you're breaking lots of rules of stupid here. Don't do that. Secondly, of course, we use words to solve problems. I don't know who was the instigator of the problem here, but recognize that it doesn't, it matters for sure. It matters. Don't hear me there. But recognize that you, as the good, sane, sober, moral, prudent person, are required to de-escalate, escape, and evade. And I don't want to say required from the perspective of legal things, but it's going to keep you out of fights. If the guy that's on top who ends up stabbed you, do you think if he could go back and redo this and go, you're right, man, my bad, I'm sorry, let me buy you a beer, or you're right, I'm ugly and stupid and I shouldn't have done that to you? He probably would do that, right? He certainly would, rather than deal with the stab wounds. So, but you don't get that hindsight bias, right? You can't go back and redo things. So you got to live it in advance. And yes, that sometimes means you're going to have to let somebody get away with being a jerk so that you don't end up in fights. And then, of course, there's all these other folks around, and this is a multiples on one circumstance. And right now, the guy who's on the ground, I don't know who the aggressors are here. And so the guy who's on the bottom here is getting stomped by a couple other people, which is why, again, I really think that one of the things that this video teaches is, sometimes my friends who are jujitsuka and they're like, man, jujitsu is the ultimate in the fighting arts, and this is going to teach you self-defense like nothing else will. I don't disagree that jujitsu is very useful in street fights. Okay, I've got 18 months of jujitsu study myself, but I want to recognize that as somebody who is maybe not going to go into competition style jujitsu or doing the competition route, that really what you want to focus on is surviving a bad position, then you want to reverse position and get on top, and then you want to reclaim your mobility and get back on your feet if at all possible. And I'm not saying either of these guys was at any level a jiu-jitsu player either, or a grappler of any kind. This looks like just a good old-fashioned, brouhaha Donnybrook street fight. But recognize, you don't want to be stuck on the ground. In this case here, the guy that's on the bottom is getting stomped into a mud puddle by the guy on top's buddies. Well, then, of course, the guy who's on bottom, his buddy's going to show up with the knife. And so the guy on top, he needs to be able to disengage right now, figure out how to get out of that reverse headlock and gain himself a better position, get up and get away from this guy. That's my number one priority when I am grounded in an actual fight, is to avoid that fight if at all possible, and then to get up and reclaim my mobility, because my power comes from mobility. I think that's one of the most important things actually John Danaher really focuses on, which I think is really important. Now, obviously, this lady shows up and she's trying to like pull these guys off of the other guy and stop this fight. I don't know whose team she's on ultimately, but frankly, unless you have a significant amount of attitude, skills, and plan, I would stay the heck out of this. I'd just get the heck out of the area as fast as you can. Otherwise, you know what? The honest answer here is to start dousing everybody with OC, because you start OC spraying folks, they will stop fighting because it hurts too much. And that's the reality of things. His buddy's involved, you don't want him to. This is an aggression thing. Physical conflict, just OC spray everybody, little hot sauce for everyone. Because if you notice here now, the guy shows up with the knife and now he's got a huge force advantage because nobody else has one. Now, if you look at the guy in the gray, he has noticed that this guy has a knife and, oh no, my buddy is now in big, big trouble and I'm in big trouble. So recognize here, before this, we had a physical confrontation. Maybe though, the guy on the bottom could make the argument here that he was at risk of death or great bodily injury. You might be able to, right here at the beginning of this, I can probably make the case that my friend, if he's the guy on the bottom, he's, he is being stomped out by the two guys on top with his buddy. So if I've seen all that, I can say he's grounded, so he's in a position of disadvantage. He has multiple attackers on top of him. They are stomping him badly, and that puts him at risk of death or great bodily injury, so I had to get in there and do something about it. Okay, but I think his actions in the rest of this are going to preclude that, quite frankly. I think that what he does from here says that he's not really being defensive, but what he's trying to do is retaliate at that guy because of how he acts. So I'm not saying he's a good guy here. On the other side, if these guys are just trying to get him off and they are, again, not the aggressors, not the initial attackers, then I think that the guy in the gray shirt sees this guy with a knife, and if he's got a concealed carry permit and he's carrying a firearm, he absolutely, this guy shows up and now he's threatening me with a knife, and I had to shoot that guy because otherwise he was going to put me or my friend in the hospital. It's exactly what he did in the end of things. So I think that you can make that case too. That's why the facts always matter here so much. So I'm not saying who the good person is here, but I am saying that you want to be the person who is not in these kinds of kind of weird, kind of murky environments, in these kinds of odd encounters, because other people can mistake facts and take those in a very different way. And so this is one of the reasons that I say don't get involved in third-party encounters. Because if I'm watching this or you're watching this and you're not one of the involved parties, who's the good person here? Who's the attack person? Who's the bad person? Who's the provoker? Who's the initiator? Who started things? I don't know right now, which is why getting involved, not great. But again, if the guy with the knife sees his buddy getting stomped into a mud puddle by multiple guys, he could probably justify having that knife out. But the way he uses it is no good. So I don't think that's what he's doing. Alternately, the guy that's in gray seeing this, I think could have drawn a firearm here if he's not the aggressor, if he's not the initiator, if he's not the provoker, and those things are not by any stretch given. Now then, let's think about this. I want to note that our guy on top here is now stabbed, and that is absolutely a threat to his life, okay? And there's a couple of things worth mentioning here. That he doesn't notice it. And often when somebody is stabbed with a knife, they think they've been punched and they don't notice until their blood volume drops because they've lost so much blood internally that they're stabbed. And we see that on the channel here all the time. So number one, he doesn't even know he's stabbed. Number two, it doesn't affect his ability to fight. And I think that's really important and worth thinking about. This is one of the reasons that, quite frankly, I just don't recommend carrying a knife as a defensive tool, because this is how most people are going to use it. If you're going to actually use it effectively, what you're using it for is to cut tendons and to slice through muscle, skeletal muscle, so the guy can't use limbs anymore. And I'm just going to tell you, the average jury is just not going to look at that well. That just looks like you are itching for a fight. You weren't at fear for your life, and so then you're carving some guy up. I just think that for most people, especially a defensive folding knife, but even also, an out the front or a fixed blade knife, for most people is not a good and useful defensive tool, because in order to use it effectively, you're going to do things to somebody that are going to be hugely mentally and emotionally scarring. Number two, when you use them in stabbing motions like this, they just don't do anything. They will eventually, 30, 40, 50 seconds later, as his blood volume goes down. But you notice here, he gets stabbed 3 times and he's still in the fight. He doesn't even recognize that he's stabbed all the way to the end of this video. And so, yeah, he went to the hospital later, but it's not a very effective means, and we see that really regularly on the channel. So I'm not telling you not to carry a defensive knife. I'm just telling you to understand what they actually do in terms of effectiveness for a defender. I don't think this guy's a defender because, again, I just see him make a stab here and then walk away and then come back and threaten a bunch of people and stab him again, when I don't actually see in that moment, okay, maybe the first one I could see, all right, now are they stomping him? But I don't see that anymore. They've backed off. Okay, so now I have a physical conflict here that my buddy is on the ground and he needs to get up. Okay, fine. My job here is to make sure this doesn't turn into a deadly force encounter. And he's done that, okay? He's gotten those guys away. So that might be a thing, but I don't see any justification here. I don't see any imminent risk of death or great bodily injury to his friend, who is on top, by the way. You might say, well, the guy is choking him. Yeah, but he's not doing so very effectively. My buddy is doing okay. He's hanging in there, and hey man, let him up or I'm gonna, cut you off of him, and that probably would be very effective. Instead, he comes back and stabs him again. Recognize again that this lady's in here trying to get the guy off of him. I don't know who she's involved with or why, but man, this is just one of those big messed up tangles there's no winners in, right? Because I don't see justification for this guy stabbing the guy on top again, other than he's trying to retaliate. This is a big fight of, oh yeah, you want to mess with us, here we go. Or at least that's how the video looks. Of course, facts can always change. Well, the facts don't change, but how do they perceive, and why did he do what he did? The police ended up coming and arresting him and the guy who was on the bottom here. So the guy who was on the bottom, at least in the initial police investigation, seems to be the initiator, the aggressor, the attacker. And the guy who was on top, who ends up stabbed twice, is the victim here because he's been stabbed several times. And that's what it looks like they are assuming he is. But again, you see that third stab there. And now what are they going to do about it? Now, you might say, well, aha, our guy who was on top, he's in the right here. He's the victim here. So he has all the legal privilege. Yeah, but that doesn't unstab you. He is going to spend months and months and months in the hospital and in rehab and trying to get his life back. So again, number one answer here: de-escalation, escape, and evasion. Not getting in fights like this. Following the rules is stupid. You want to stay out of this if at all possible. Notice how messed up this is. You want to stay away from this stuff as a third party. You don't even want to be there videotaping it. You want to get out of the area as fast as you can. Call 911, get the cops there. Number three, the police did show up here within 1 minute of receiving a 911 call. They had patrol in the area, but not soon enough to stop the stabbing. You and only you are the one who can protect yourself in the moment. And lastly here, again, it's still a giant pain in the butt to get a concealed carry permit in Alameda County, California, which is where Berkeley is, which is terrible. It takes 2 years, costs $1,000, requires a psych exam. It's just an absolute disaster, and that's not following Bruin at all. And so I think Californians should absolutely sue for that to change in their jurisdictions and keep pushing in order for your right to keep and bear arms to be respected. Had the victims here had a firearm, I think that there was multiple times it would have been justified to use it. They didn't. And listen, you got to have other means. I think an OC spray here would have maybe doused this whole thing before the time gets there where there's a firearm involved or where there's a knife involved. Might have been a good choice early to cover your asp.